Greetings, amazing friends, and welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. My name is David McLeod, and I am your Life Mastery coach and author of the wonderful little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. This is episode number 198, and the title of today's episode is Spontaneous Healing. Now, I think almost everyone understands healing in the context of physical wounds and injuries. Who hasn't suffered a cut or a broken bone, or maybe even worse, and gone through the sometimes lengthy process of being restored to wholeness? And that's what healing means, really, restoring to wholeness. But wholeness isn't limited only to the body. There's often, there's also the other components of the holistic being, the body, the mind, the heart, and the soul. And so we're going to be talking today about healing in a whole different perspective, a very holistic perspective. And we're going to talk about something even more amazing, I think, and it's called spontaneous healing. Now, if you can imagine, wouldn't it be great if all of your healing could happen spontaneously? Well, I think we're going to find out ways that we can actually do that today. So for this episode of Life Mastery TV, I've invited a licensed spiritual healer and shaman to join me and to talk about this idea of spontaneous healing in some detail, I hope. My guest is the owner and founder of Second Nature Healing. She's a licensed spiritual healer, author, shaman, Reiki master teacher, and certified vibrational sound master teacher. She's got a lot of wisdom and a lot of skill, and I hope you'll please join me in welcoming Rosemary Levesque to our show today. Welcome, Rosemary. I hope you're doing well. And here we are.
Yay!
Welcome.
Everybody, Yahoo!
Yahoo is right.
Well, Yahoo actually raises your vibration.
Yeah, but not necessarily Yahoo, the website.
No. No, the body motion and the sound, your voice. When do people do that? They might do it at a game or, cheering on your grandchild when they're watching a sporting event. That Yahoo is something that just lifts you right up. So if you're needing an immediate lift, go Yahoo!
Yahoo! There we go.
Yes.
Well, so Rosemary, I think before we get too deep into the conversation about spontaneous healing, I would like to know a little bit about your own personal journey. And, what was it that brought you onto this path of shamanism and Reiki mastery and healing in general, but more specifically, this idea of spontaneous healing? Something specific happened in your life to bring you to this, or what can you tell us about that?
How about the whole life journey? It isn't just one moment ever, really, for anybody who is on their life path. The more they become aware of just stuff, they just become aware of stuff, everything matters. Everything contributes. So going back to my beginnings, born in Hawaii and anointed with the trade winds, anointed with gardenia and jasmine and hibiscus and all the wonderful scents that are in Hawaii. Anointing, that's one of my chapters in the ancestral books that Amy Gillespie does as a best-selling author. Actually, that one's yet to be published.
Oh, yeah?
It's coming out next month. So from the moment of birth to childhood, digging in the dirt, catching snakes and frogs, watching the bees, all of those things, I became a biology teacher. And it was always my journey to be connected to teaching and be connected to Mother Earth. How many people feel like they're disconnected from something if they don't get outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
So getting outside, being a part of nature, witnessing the wisdom that nature has to offer, not just witnessing with your eyes, witnessing with your whole body experience. being in water, hearing birds, hearing bees, hearing tree frogs, and being able to identify them and feel vibrant and happy with them. So in my teaching journey as a biology teacher, I did get married and I moved to South Korea. I was there for 3 years. And during that time, my mother had a failing bout with cancer. And she wrote me a letter. We didn't have internet back then. She wrote me a letter. She said, by the time you receive this letter, I will have already undergone surgery and other things. So boy, did I race home fast, right? And that journey of taking care of my mother during her time with modern medicine and, you know, following all the directions that the doctor said, I just remember one day sitting across from her. Yeah, I'm going to get choked up. Sitting across from her in the living room, she had had a particularly horrible experience with her last round of chemo. And here she was talking to her daughter, the biology teacher. She said, Rosemary, can the liver repair itself? Can the liver heal and regenerate? And I didn't know. I didn't know that. I was in my 20s and I was inexperienced. Nobody was talking about that kind of healing. And I didn't have an answer for her except I don't know. And what she said to me was, I don't want any more chemo. And as soon as she said that, I felt this release happen. And it felt to me like she took back her power in that moment. And that's a feeling I'll never forget, that she said, I don't want to do that anymore. Well, she started to get better. Ultimately, she couldn't win over that journey, but she won in her spiritual nature. She won by saying, I don't want to do that anymore because I want to feel better. I want to have an appetite. I want to go to the movies. And we did all of those things after she stopped the chemicals. So that was the initial part of my journey. Later on, it was my dog that taught me.
Well, you know, and you've already mentioned nature and
Yes.
frogs and everything else. So why wouldn't a dog get involved? You know? But I wanted to say something. One of the phrases that you used as you were describing this scenario is you talked about modern medicine. And, you know, that seems like such an oxymoron to me. You know, it's a misuse of the word medicine. Most of what we are given from modern medicine today is actually variations of different kinds of poisons that really don't do us any good at all. If you look specifically, for example, at some of the pharmaceutical products that are constantly being bombarded on us through social, you know, not social media, but mainstream media and advertising, they have more side effects than they have effects. And their side effects are, I mean, it's ridiculous. And it just blows my mind that people continue to take this stuff and doctors continue to prescribe it. These people who we're supposed to trust, you know? And so here you are today, a shaman, and I would say a medicine woman who tries to help people heal holistically through natural means, through you know, finding their own connection to source, and through in what's the word I want to say, bringing into being their own innate powers of healing, so that they can say, like your mom did, I don't want to do that anymore.
Right. And that's actually a critical step towards spontaneous healing, is making a choice like that. Choosing something that you fall into alignment with. So if you want to analyze with me just for a moment here, why did my mother choose chemotherapy, radiation, surgery? Why did she choose that? Well, that was all that was offered. We're talking, you know, early 80s, right? And that was all that was offered. That was all that people were aware of. I mean, I didn't grow up that way. My mother didn't treat me that way, treat in the sense of anything medical. I had an aversion to doctors even back then, and she understood that. She respected that. So if I had an earache or a cold or anything, it was how she could help me naturally. And that resonated with me, and she saw that in me. She saw that I did better if I was at home in my own space and having what I needed. You know, when I was 10, I broke my leg ice skating, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a really bad break. I ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks. Why would a kid with a broken leg be in the hospital for 2 weeks? They wouldn't let me go home because I had another infection. I had a secondary infection, and what was I doing? Going downhill. I wasn't healing. And finally, my mother said to them, "You've got to let me take her home because I won't be able to pay the bill." So she got
Right.
me home, and I started healing really fast. You know, I ate foods that were prepared at home. They weren't hospital food. I was
Yeah.
in my own surroundings. I had everything I needed. And then I began to heal, but I wasn't healing in the hospital. At 10, my body knew that.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing to me how we have come to this place of believing that some guy in a white lab coat with a stethoscope on his around his neck or whatever, or a female for that matter, that suddenly they are the all being, all seeing, all knowing authority, and we don't know a damn thing about ourselves. And in
That
fact,
happened.
it's getting to the point now. Angela just mentioned about the clot shot, and I say, yeah, that's a good point to mention. But the problem that we're having now is if we don't comply with these so-called authorities, then we're going to have our rights and our privileges and our freedoms taken away. And we're seeing that happen even now. I mean, obviously, they are wrong. They are absolutely 100% wrong in this. There's just no question about that. And so we have to somehow find our own voice and our own courage and our willingness to stand up and say, all right, enough, enough. You've had your chance. You've proven absolutely nothing, or actually you have proven that you're incompetent. But outside of that, you don't, what right do you have to start, putting stuff like this into our bodies, into our children, requiring them to have all these vaccines that don't do any good whatsoever? Where is this going to end? So I really appreciate someone like you coming on and talking about the natural approach, the holistic approach, the authentic approach.
Well, I'm not going to get political about anything here. And Mother
That's all
Teresa.
right. I'll do it for both of us.
Okay. Mother Teresa's voice is coming through, and she's saying she won't fight for anything. We're not going to fight for anything, because fighting is a vibration also, right? There's a right, a wrong, a this, a that, a butting of heads. She said, but if you want me to go for something, I will go for peace. I'll show up for that. All right, so peace is a different vibration. That's a higher vibration. And so where I'm coming from, what I teach all of my students is we're not going to go against something. We're not going to go against cancer. We're not going to go against vaccines. We're not going to go against modern medicine. We're going to find what we're in alignment with and do that. And if more of us do that, if we go into alignment with what feels right for us, then everybody will be raising the vibration of the mass consciousness. So there won't be that butting of heads. You're not going to get anywhere butting heads.
Well,
Just
I
won't
agree
happen.
with you. In principle, I agree with you. And I think, as Angela says, it's not about politics. It's about free will and divine sovereignty. And I agree with that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I can simply ignore the voices that I'm hearing, and continue to move along my path and encourage others to do the same thing. But at some point, when all of us are being slowly hemmed into a particular pen, we may have to fight. I'm sorry to say it, but sometimes you may just simply have to fight because there is no other alternative. And you can still fight, and you can still be fierce from a place of love and compassion. You can still have those energies within you as you are saying no to something, as you are putting up your boundary and saying, that's enough.
You know, you do hit the nail on the head for one aspect of what I see almost daily. And I'll just share a little story about what's happening with one of my students. One of my students shared with me that her mom was, I'll just say, ready to fall off the cliff, you know, a stage where you don't want that number. And bedridden, horrible situation. I said, well, you need to go home with this. And I gave her a bottle of a mineral used for detoxification. So she did that, and her mother is getting better. Her kidneys are functioning. She's rolling herself, walking herself into the kitchen, making cream of wheat. The doctors are blown away, and they're saying, oh, good. Now you're ready for your next infusion of chemo.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And my student is saying, well, here's what's happening. She's using this. She's pulling out heavy metals and toxins. She's getting better. Does she really have to do that? And why don't you take a look at this mineral, see what it is? And over the doctor's head, stop giving it to her because it could damage her kidneys. Well, wait a minute. Didn't you just say her kidneys were better? So,
they're all part of the, let's just say they're all part of the indoctrinated masses.
yes.
You know, they have been taught something, they
Yep.
went to a college, they learned a particular way of doing things, and their primary goal, even though they're not necessarily bad people, and believe me, I'm not saying doctors are bad people. I am saying they probably have the best of intentions, but they don't really know what they're talking about. And that's the problem. They have not been educated, they have been indoctrinated into a certain way of thinking. And consequently, and so many of them are being treated that way. And we have learned from a very small, when we were very small children, to accept these people as authorities. We were told, trust the doctor, trust the police, trust these people, trust those people. And so consequently, you know, that's what we have done, and look what it's cost us. And so here we are today, trying to find a better way to live, and we have to navigate our way through all of the rhetoric and the comments that we're seeing and hearing all the time. We have to find a pathway that doesn't compete with them, but allows us to move along our own paths of honesty and truth and sovereignty. So I think, you know, this is a great topic, I think, because it's really bringing up a lot of stuff here.
Yes,
And it's in fact, I think just the conversation is helping to detoxify us in some way.
Well, we hope so, right? So you talk about the conditioning, and I believe that the conditioning happens as soon as, well, maybe even before, but definitely cementing it in as soon as we go to school. And that is our first, beyond our parents, beyond our home base, we have authority figures coming into the picture. And these authority figures are teachers, right?
Right.
And teachers are trained also. I was one of them, a biology teacher, trained to work in a specific way to enhance the thinking part of the brain. So the left side of the brain is activated, deduction, thinking, masculine part of the brain, and in alignment with that. And so what we're finding now, or what I'm doing now with my students, my clients, is activating the right side of the brain, which is the more feminine side, or the intuitive part, the reptilian brain in the cerebellum, and the amygdala, the core of the brain, the third eye, all of these aspects of being and thinking that get out of your thinking head, that get out of your deductive reasoning and more into tapping into your intuition and knowing, your higher knowing. That's where spontaneous healing begins to happen, is when you get out of trying to reason with it and tapping into the intuitive part that says, okay, this feels right with my body. I'm going to do this. I'm going to eat this. I'm going to be with this person or listen to this message.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. The idea of following intuition is something that also is, I think, conditioned out of us from a pretty young age.
Mm-hmm.
A big part of how we are taught is to think logically, to think linearly, to use the scientific method. So we're constantly strengthening the left brain, the logical brain, and very little attention. In fact, I would say even no attention is paid to the right side of the brain, at least as far as normal schools are concerned. So it's something that we have to do on our own. And I think what you have described as you were having your own journey with your mother, and she was starting to awaken up to certain things, that's when the intuition was starting to kick in. And so what I think you have done for yourself, based on what I'm hearing here, is that you have strengthened your right brain, and maybe you haven't reduced the strength of your left brain, but you simply don't spend as much time there as you do on the right side. And so you're balancing,
Mm-hmm.
And for people who are not used to that sort of thing, it may look like it's imbalanced because you're spending more time on the right side of your brain. So that's kind of interesting.
Well, believe me, I really like thinking and reading and investigating, researching, studying.
Sure.
That's part of my science background. Um, I enjoy that aspect of it, and I also enjoy the intuitive aspect of it. So I've got both. I encourage both, and through the weaving of both, I think this is what's going to propel us to a more natural, healthy future, is that we learn and we make our own choices. We're doing both.
Right. All right. So let's ask the question, what exactly is spontaneous healing? Can you give us a definition of that?
Not sure if I can. Well, spontaneous healing. First of all, the concept of healing is that it's not just the fixing of something. It's not just the obvious healing of a cut or a broken bone or something like that. That's part of it. But healing is a restoration to wholeness. So we're really talking about a definition of wholeness. What is wholeness, and how do we restore wholeness? So wholeness comes from your soul blueprint. It comes from your well, like I was always a teacher. I was born a teacher, and I was always a teacher. Okay, that's part of my blueprint. It's who I am, right? So everything I do, everything from biology to shamanism, everything in there is part of my wholeness. So it's who you are, it's what you say, it's what you believe, it's how you express yourself in this world. That's your wholeness. Now, spontaneously getting there is just aligning to that. So, did you ever have a cut that did not heal, or a bone that did not heal? Right? Well, if it didn't heal, what interfered with it? Did you get an infection on top of it, like I did in the hospital? Right? So, something was preventing me when I was 10 years old from aligning to wholeness, from feeling at ease in my body, in my physical body. Spirit comes into physical form, and spirit needs to be comfortable with physical form. If it's not comfortable, it's not going to feel good, and it's not going to heal. So feeling good and spontaneously healing has a lot to do with vibration. And Dr. I'm going to forget his name. He wrote Vibrational Healing. Richard Gerber, excuse me. He wrote several books on vibrational healing, and they were all about how to increase your vibration so that you could heal. Now, vibration is what you see, feel, hear, know, think, in not just physical form, but how you align to that wholeness and what you can do to raise your vibration. Because this physical body is a really low vibration. You compare the vibration of spirit to the vibration of the body, it takes a lot of energy for spirit to come into physical form, to manifest as physical form. And this is low. And it's so low, it's kind of dead, almost dead in terms of how you measure vibration. So what you want to do is raise your vibration. And that's what we started out with a Yahoo. That raises the vibration. You can raise your vibration with sound healing, tuning forks, gongs, bowls, chanting, listening, dancing to music, movement, aromas, smelling the flowers, cedar branches, essential oils, crystals, laying on the ground, eating grass, eating green foods. All of these raise your vibration so that your body can hold on to that wholeness of who your spirit is and heal. So why didn't I heal in the hospital? I had a low vibration.
Yeah. So when you're talking about raising the vibration, then it sounds to me like what you're talking about is actually increasing the vibration of the body.
Yes.
That's the purpose of, the things like you talk about, listening to certain sounds, feeling certain things, hearing certain things, smelling certain things. So these are all activating the senses associated with the body. And so you're elevating the body's vibration. But what about the just simply aligning with the natural vibration of your spirit, of your soul, through meditation or prayer or some other modality like that? Does that help as well?
Yes, totally. And I'd like to go back one step, David. It's not just raising the vibration of the physical body, because cells have a memory. They have a memory that goes backward and forward in time because there is no time, right? So the cells that have a memory have a spiritual memory. So when you smell a particular aroma, it might bring to mind a past life memory, something that you didn't actually do in this lifetime, but did in another life. And I recalled actually something like that when I smelled a particular blend of oils. I remembered myself as I was getting the information, French nun nurse. Okay, I guess I was a French nun nurse, and that memory came through because of the aroma I was smelling. It was a vibration that I came into alignment with. And so it's not just a physical feeling. When you're experiencing these vibrations, you can actually unjar some memories of all, well, whatever you've experienced. Yes, but meditation, absolutely. I love the idea of going into a meditative state. And if you get really good at it, if you get the sweet spot, like on a tennis racket or a golf club or a baseball bat, there's a sweet spot. I call the sweet spot of meditation the theta brainwave. And so if you get into the theta brainwave and you know what that feels like, you can go there anytime. You don't have to be, you don't have to do that. You can just get it and improve your intuitive abilities as well.
Yeah, yeah. Right. This is really fascinating stuff, and obviously, I think all of us would love to be at a higher elevation or higher vibration more frequently. Or at least I believe that's true. I don't know if it is true. Maybe there are some people who like being in low vibration, and okay, that's their thing, that's their life. But I think the truth of it is most of us are seeking to improve ourselves. We're seeking to get better. We're seeking to grow. We're seeking to expand. We're seeking to be more of who we really are. And that really involves expanding and increasing vibration, doesn't it? It's a
Yeah.
combination of all those things that have to work together.
And that's innate. What you described, David, is innate. It is the natural way of things. We want to grow. We want to learn. We want to expand. We want to heal. And
Right.
healing is natural. It is innate. And so tapping into that sweet spot of knowing, of healing, of feeling, that will automatically move you toward healing on any
Okay,
level.
so right. And so what you're actually talking about now is this thing that you described before. Actually, you may not have described it here, but you certainly described it in your write-up. You call it the healing system. Why
Yes.
don't you talk a little bit about that and help us to understand more about what that is about?
Okay. So the healing system is not a term that I came up with. I know that Dr. Andrew Weil uses that term, the healing system. But when I was teaching biology, we covered all the systems in the body, right? Do you remember from biology? Respiratory system,
Oh,
circulatory
yeah.
system,
Right,
skeletal
right.
system.
Mhm.
Yeah, all of those systems. We never had anything in our biology book called the healing system.
Right.
Nobody talked about that, right? So the healing system is actually comprised of many different parts of the body and the mind going on at the same time. So it's partly the immune system. What are the white blood cells doing? Well, it's partly also in the bones, making blood cells from the marrow. It's also in the brain and the brain waves that are going on. How do you align with better sleep, for example? Because sleep is when healing happens, when you get out of your head and more into those theta and delta waves, that you're able to let go of the thinking brain that's keeping you from healing and moving more toward the intuitive brain waves that it allows you to heal instead. So what is keeping everybody from spontaneous healing is what you're thinking about. So so the healing
And most
system,
of what we're thinking about isn't so positive.
yeah, there's a lot of despair, hopelessness, despair, confusion, um, confusion of authority, as we talked about before, who to trust, who to believe in. And I would say for most people, they're not given time to take a step back, take a breath, and say, well, what do I really want to do? Because as soon as there's a diagnosis, and I see this time after time after time with my clients, as soon as there's a diagnosis, they're railroaded. They're railroaded into, okay, we're going to set an appointment with your oncologist. We're going to do these tests. We're going to do, all these things. And without even giving you a moment to breathe, they're telling you what they are going to do to you.
That's right. Yep.
Do they set you up with a nutritionist? Do they set you up with a massage therapist, an acupuncturist? Do they set you up with an exercise consultant? Do they set you up with um, a shaman? No, that's not part of the system.
That's
So,
right.
what
Yep.
I see happening in the future is an integration of these things, and the integration will be coming as a part of the demand. And that's what I was talking about earlier, David, is if we all are moving in alignment toward higher vibration, wholeness, trusting, belief in ourselves, then the market will have to come to meet the demand of that. It'll have to happen. And
Right.
there will be an integration. maybe not for another 50 years, but we're getting there.
Well, I hope I don't have to wait that long.
No, you don't. You don't, because you're already on the right track.
Well, I hope so. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes I question my own path, even now, you know, who doesn't have doubts, really? And by the way, I just wanted to invite all the folks who are here on the live show, please, ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to post your questions or comments in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them or respond to them as we proceed. In fact, I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks about this spontaneous healing idea and the healing system. Do you have any thoughts about it? Do you have any questions about it? Just let us know. Just type something in the chat there. So this idea of a healing system, you know, you're absolutely right. I don't remember ever talking about, you know, the healing system when I was in school. There's a lot of other things they didn't teach in school too. I mean, for example, there wasn't any education about how to express or share your feelings. None of that happened when I was in school. You know, can you imagine how different life would be today if we had learned to express our feelings in a positive, healthy way that didn't do damage to other people? I mean, I can't imagine how different life would be if we had, you know, done proper education.
Right, so. Right. Wow. Well, awareness is the first step.
Yeah, that's right.
And that goes for healing. It goes for the feelings as well. Becoming aware of something. And when you get a diagnosis, you are suddenly aware of something that is quote unquote wrong. And really the wrong thing is just a lower vibration that is out of alignment with a higher vibration of wholeness. So the important thing is to, you know, to minimize that gap and bring them closer together. So it's not really wrong. You just want to make it more into alignment.
Right. Star asks, can you please explain spontaneous remission? Is that something that you're aware of?
That's sort of the golden child of spontaneous healing, right? Is spontaneous remission. And we see spontaneous remission sometimes, I guess it's been recorded after a near-death experience, for example. Well, if we use that example after a near-death experience or something of that nature, it's a release of all you thought was true, a release, a letting go of what you believed to be happening and what you believed to be your stuff, a letting go of that, and a seeing of truth, an alignment to truth. And with all the books and studies that have been done on near-death experience, they all seem to have a few things in common. And that seems to be one of the things, without getting into that kind of discussion, is a letting go and alignment to higher purpose, a higher vibration, higher sense of who you are. So it's fast, right? Remission is fast. And yet we are doing remission all of the time when we heal. When we heal the cuts and we heal the broken bones and we heal the heart, all of those are happening, maybe not in the fast remission kind of way, but they are going into remission.
Right.
So get after it faster. You release your crap sooner and you'll heal faster.
Well, you know, they have this expression. I don't know if they have it where you live, but when I was living in California, they had a term that I found very, very descriptive and meaningful. It was called anal retentive.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first heard that, I said, how appropriate that is, because that's precisely what we're doing sometimes, is hanging on to our own, you know what.
Yeah. I think that comes from Freud, right?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, I thought it was kind of appropriate and funny. Angela says, please talk about how you work in the energy field with tuning forks to help a person uncover their truth. I think tuning forks is one aspect, but I imagine there are other tools as well that you use in your work to help people uncover their truths.
So how much time do you have? because I teach this all the time. But to answer briefly, tuning forks, if you're familiar with tuning forks, they each have their own vibration. So you can have, for example, a 528 tuning fork, 528 hertz, is said by some people to be the vibration that can help repair human DNA or DNA in general. And people have used and done studies on the 528 hertz frequency on clearing pollution from lakes and restoring to wholeness. And Star, I know, is on here. She asked a question. Star, when she had heart surgery more than a year ago, instructed the nurse in the recovery room to use the 528 hertz tuning fork on her heart to help bring her back into that vibration for healing. How about that? Wouldn't it be nice if there were tuning forks and that kind of sound therapy integrated into the recovery room at a hospital? So what tuning forks do, to answer Angela's question, what tuning forks do is they work in the etheric field. We're talking about energy tuners, not body tuners. Body tuners are the ones that have weights on the ends. So the energy tuners work in the etheric field, and the etheric field is what manifests into physical form. Spirit becomes flesh. Sound becomes flesh. First there was the word became flesh, right? Said right in the Bible, if we, pick out the words that we know are not corrupted. So working in the energy field, if you can align the energy field to wholeness and to higher vibrations, that will manifest into physical form. Now, the opposite is also true. If you have vibrations in your environment, harsh words, anger, I hate you, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're fat, whatever it is, if you have those vibrations here, they will also manifest into physical form. It's amazing how that happens. So I work with higher vibrations that attune the body to manifest into physical form toward healing.
And of course, we have mainstream science that goes out of its way to tell us that all of what you just described is complete woo-woo, pseudoscience.
Yahoo!
It has no basis in fact, and there's no evidence. That's kind of how they respond to it. Even though there have been plenty of studies, maybe not massive mainstream studies, but what's that Japanese scientist name?
Masaru Emoto.
And he studied water and the forming of crystals in water as a result of some of the sound energy that you were just describing. And then there's these other people who have done thousands of studies on cymatics and on the shapes of different frequencies when they vibrate sand on these drums. I mean, it's amazing stuff.
Cool. It is so cool. And why do you think sunflowers have that Fibonacci pattern in the middle, or snails have the Fibonacci pattern?
It's actually the golden ratio, the golden mean. And the Fibonacci numbers just happen to coincide with the golden mean. It's very, very fascinating stuff, and there has been study after study after study on this. So to just simply dismiss it is disingenuous at best. There's no question that frequency makes all kinds of difference. No question whatsoever. And I think you're right. I've heard lots like the 528 frequency, the 430. What is it? The 432 frequency is another one. There's a variety of different frequencies that have different purposes and so forth. I mean, the Schumann resonance frequency, which defines the resonance frequency of the Earth, is like 7.86 hertz. Very, very low frequency, but it's something that affects us all 100% of the time.
And you can create that frequency by using two tuning forks that have that as a dissonance. So
that's called binaural beats.
That's right. If you're working with two tuning forks one on each side. They're different frequencies, but they have a dissonance of 7.8. Then you're listening to the Schumann resonance.
That's right. Well, you might externally, you might hear the two sounds.
Yep.
But internally, your brain is kind of resolving it to the difference between those two frequencies. I do this all the time. I don't know if you know this, but I create my own meditation music. And I use brainwave entrainment technology inside that music that uses the 7.83 hertz frequency as its basis.
Yes.
So yeah, and I use it and I meditate myself using that music. Oh, it is so good. Well, you talked about theta waves and delta waves before, and 7.83 gets you right in that fine sweet spot between the two.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it's easy to do that. It's easy to get there. And if you don't have tuning forks, you can call me. I'll get you some tuning forks. But if you don't have tuning forks, go lay down on the earth.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Just go out there and lay down, or if you can't lay down on it, walk barefoot.
Well, you mentioned about going into nature right at the very beginning when we started the show. You talked about that, and one of the things that I've noticed about people. I mean, I love going out. I walk my dog all the time, but whenever I'm out and I see someone else walking, they almost always have their cell phone out in front of them, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? That completely defeats the purpose of being out walking in nature, you know?
Well, one of the gifts I believe that we all have as an opportunity is if we have a dog, for example, the dog will, and my last dog used to poke me in the ribs, Mom, it's time to go out and do something. And so having a dog is like having a gift, a reminder of go outside and go do this. So why are you on the phone? Why are you plugged in, turned on, tuned out? I don't know. I can't figure that one out myself.
I know. Well, my dog, he's constantly reminding me, hey, it's time to go out. Let's go. I want to play with the ball. I want to do this. I want to. And he's just my total joy for me.
So animals keep you whole too. Animals are reminders of wholeness. As soon as you look into their eyes or put your hands on them or be in their company and watch the tail wag, or if it's a cat and they're purring on your body or pressing their paws into your chest, these are irreplaceable connections of higher vibration. They are reminders of our connection to Mother Gaia, because animals are of the earth realm. They are of the lower world. And so having animals around, if you don't have your own animal, you can go out and observe animals in nature. They are of the lower world. They will get you grounded.
Right. And I would strongly recommend people get a dog. I mean, some people like cats. Cats are a different kind of energy, I think, but dogs, there's something about dogs that just they're curious, they're fun, they're playful, they just have such joy in their hearts and unconditional love, They're amazing creatures. I really encourage people, get a dog, man. Your health will improve dramatically. Not to mention your exercise. My dog is the best exercise device I ever purchased.
And watch out, David. We're going to start hearing from cat people any minute.
I know. Well, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Now, I wanted to ask you, we've talked about a lot of ways that we can, improve and increase our vibration and get ourselves more connected to this spontaneous healing. But I'm wondering if you'd like to share any specific strategies or suggestions about maybe one or two or three things that people can do starting today that help them to get more in alignment with the energy of spontaneous healing.
Well, I have a whole list, and I wrote it in a blog article that I can give you that link for later. But I think the most immediate thing is to notice what you notice. Most people are pretty oblivious most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. They're tuned out. And so when I say notice what you notice how you feel when you drink a cup of coffee, for example. Notice how you feel after you are in a particular situation or around a particular person. Notice, do your muscles clench up? Does your stomach get in knots? Just kind of notice. And when you notice these things, you can say, well, maybe I shouldn't drink that. Maybe I shouldn't go there and talk to that person. Or, do you see where I'm going with this? It's just sort of a reflection, an inner reflection first. It's the easiest, it's the cheapest, it's the one most readily available, and you can do so much with noticing what you notice and just making some shifts. Now, a lot of people don't notice what they notice until they get a diagnosis. When they get a diagnosis, they start noticing more, like, how did this happen to me? How did I get this dis-ease? Well, it is dis-ease. You're not at ease, right? And so you start to notice more. Well, what do healthy people do? What do healthy people do? Well, they go outside. They eat green vegetables. They meditate. They try to raise their vibration. So you come into alignment with what healthy people do, and you begin to shift your vibration. Those are the two easiest things to get started with.
Well, I really love that notice what you notice recommendation. It's, I think I've used the same kind of language with people, but not in those words. And, for example, notice what you're thinking. Well, most people don't pay any attention to what they're thinking because they're just thinking.
Yeah.
And when I meditate, and when I teach people about meditation, I say, look, meditation is about coming into the present moment. It's not about shutting everything down. It's just about being present to what's going on right now. So as you're doing that and becoming more present, what happens is your awareness starts to rise. And because your awareness is rising, so does your level of energy, so does your vibration. They rise simultaneously. You cannot avoid it. And as it rises, you may start noticing that you've got thoughts, and you might get angry because you've got a thought that's disturbing your meditation. Well, don't get angry about it. Just notice that that's what's happening. So you see, this is beautiful. The idea of noticing suggests that you can observe something without judging it.
Right.
You can just simply pay attention. Oh, that's interesting. Well,
yes.
Interesting is a judgment, isn't it? But you get my point.
Yeah.
Isn't it curious that I think about that right now?
Yes.
I wonder, does it have a meaning to it? Well, let's find out. You can just keep noticing. Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to mention, David, is breathing. We subconsciously stop breathing. We hold our breath all the time. And when you hold your breath, you're denying your body of its most powerful tool to breathe. In fact, there are books written on breathing, and really to inhale a lot and exhale a lot, maybe more than you normally do, is another tool that I would say is fundamental. You don't want to stop breathing, right? You know what they call people who don't breathe, right?
Dead.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. I read a book recently called Breath, and I can't remember the author's name. It's James somebody or other. I just can't remember. Beautiful book. And the thing that I got the most out of in that book was our tendency in our culture, and it's most cultures nowadays, is to breathe through our mouth. Now, just think about this. If you go out and exert yourself, you go running, for example, you're almost certainly going to be breathing through your mouth because you've been taught to do that. What he says in this book, and it just blew my mind, he says, if you can continue breathing through your nose, you will find that your quality of running or any other exercise you're doing will start to improve. And I said, that can't be right. So I do a little bit of running on my own. I actually went out and I tried it. And it's hard at first because my body is so used to breathing through my mouth when I'm running. But if I did it, I just concentrated. I just said, okay, run, run, run. Keep breathing through the nose. Try to breathe in quickly and exhale as slowly as possible. In fact, I don't even do my inhale with any kind of control. I just let the lungs fill themselves up, and I slowly exhale as many steps as I can. It's an amazing feeling. It blew my mind how good I felt doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so there's other exercises that you can do too in relation to breathing. And you're absolutely right. Breath is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many people have lung diseases, or diseases that are kind of related to, too much oxygen and not enough carbon dioxide. That sounds counterintuitive. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's really important. We think that it's so important to get rid of all the carbon dioxide, but that's not true. The carbon dioxide in our blood actually helps to absorb oxygen. That blew my mind when I found that out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of stuff you can learn about breath that can make your life just so much better.
Mm-hmm. And to enhance your breathing consciously so that you can do it unconsciously, that would be a nice goal.
Yeah,
and if that's the only thing you did, okay, what a great start.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rosemary, this has been an awesome conversation. I've just been so blessed to have you here and just to, gain some of your wisdom. Before I close out, are there any other words of wisdom you'd like to share, just to finalize your side?
My side. No fighting. No fighting.
Well, we're not fighting. When I say your side, I don't even know what I meant by that.
No, but with yourself even. No fighting with yourself. Self-judgment and the oh poor me syndrome and the why did this happen to me? That's not going to serve you. So feel it, know it, get done with it, get rid of it as soon as possible, and start moving toward alignment to wholeness. So to leave you with these thoughts, I do recommend that you connect and, go to my website, read my blog article. You can also download a free ebook, The Ultimate Natural Healing Solution. It has strategies for getting your healing system going. And I'll be working with the Wellness Universe as well, with a monthly online class that is about optimal healing. And that, of course, goes into all of the things that I've been studying about and writing about for years, just out there. It's coming, it's out there. So right. I just invite you to connect.
Well, beautiful. Thank you so much, Rosemary. Rosemary, I'm sorry.
Like
I'm not used to saying that name. Rosemary?
Yes.
You like it? The like accent on the end?
Rosemary, like the herb. Yeah.
Okay, Rosemary. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you here. I've enjoyed the conversation, and I know we've covered a lot of good stuff here. And thank you all to you folks here who showed up on the live presentation. Thanks everybody for watching today's program. Remember, you can catch the recordings of this and all other previous shows on my website at lifemasterytv.com. That's life-mastery-tv.com. And everyone, please just remember to practice the Life Mastery mantra every day. It goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, my name is David McLeod. I am your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. Bye-bye for now.
See you later.